Hey guys, it's Bear with the Gimme Camper. So we're here today at Fall Creek Falls. I wanted to say that we have been here before. We have an older video. You know, was kind of just getting into camping at the time. And so I do have some site recommendations and stuff, and it gets a little bit more deep into the other loops and stuff. This is a huge campground. So if you're interested in that old video, go up there and check it out. I'm gonna put a link up here in the corner as well as down in the description. Now I do want to give you a warning because I didn't even remember this when I came up here before. You know, I've spent a lot of time in this generalized area with hiking and stuff. I've not done a lot of hiking here in the state park, but I have hiked at Virgin Falls, which is technically part of the state park. We'll get into that in a minute. But you know, I've spent a lot of time in this generalized area, and so I'll say that I knew what I was getting into when I had to drive up here, but I forgot how bad the road was when you were almost here. The way that I come in is I went to Chattanooga, down 153, got on 27, then got on 111. And 111 can be a little bit hairy, but if you've been down there before, you know what I'm talking about. There's just one small section right there near Dunlap where it gets pretty steep as well as curvy. You just got to be careful, but there's no like big hazardous areas right there. Now when you almost get to the park here with that last 10 miles or so, it gets a little bit more hairy than I remembered. So there are some sharp curves, there are some steep areas there, and you know, you got to be comfortable dragging your rig through there. So if you're not a fan of curvy roads with your trailer or your Class A or whatever, you just be careful. You might want to drive up here first and check it out and see if this is the right thing for you. All right guys, so I'm back home already, but I want to insert this clip right here just to tell you that my buddy was right. So if you come in from the north on 284, it's a breeze coming in there. There's no windy turns, none of that stuff. It's all highway. I will say you can take that 284 all the way to 111. On the way out, I was tempted to take it because it said to turn left, but then I realized it was 30 again, and that's the whole road I was trying to avoid. For me, it wasn't too horrible coming in and out of there, but I did drive through the gorge over at Bandy Creek, and some of my friends think I was crazy for doing that. But our rig's only 30 foot long too, so it's not as bad as having some of those 40 foot long fifth wheels. This footage that I'm overlaying here is footage where we're going out of the park as well as on the 284 and just some of the trip through there. Just know that if you take 111 that you will have some grade issues. There's Dunlap's like down in the valley, and on one side you got a real steep hill coming from Chattanooga that goes down into Dunlap, and then after you pass the Dunlap exit you'll go up. It's 8% grade. It's for 3 or 4 miles. It's not horrible, but there are a couple of sharp turns there that you got to be careful for. And if you're not ready for them, it can catch you by surprise. But just go slow. As long as your tow rig's appropriate for your camper, you shouldn't have any issues there. But just be careful on those hills, especially those large descents, because those brakes won't hold up if you just lay on them. Which is why I love my diesel exhaust brake. I only hit my brakes like one time all the way down that big old mountain. I will say that a lot of these sites are smaller. There are some larger rigs here. This one right here belongs to a subscriber of mine. We kind of met up here with him and another one of his friends that's also a subscriber, and I thank them for their support. But they got a longer rig than I got. I kind of like my rig being 29 feet. I think technically it's like 32 or 33, but it's a 29 RKS because I can fit in a lot of sites that larger rigs can't. So you can fit a larger rig in here, but you have to be warned that it's going to be a tight fit. Now, I want to say something first about the park here. Some people like to go stay at a campground, pull in, and just travel out and do different things around the area. I want to tell you that this park, there's a lot of stuff to do here in the park that we'll talk about in a minute, but there's not hardly anything around this generalized area. You're going to have a little bit of a drive if you're going to go anywhere. And so you're going to have to be set on probably just staying inside the park and seeing what the park has to offer if you come here for a visit. Now, like I said, this is a huge campground. They have 222 sites according to the website. They also state that they have, I think it was 92 that are sewer hookups. Most of the sewer sites appear to be in B loop, but in A loop, sites 6 to 17 are all full hookups as well, with a couple of extras thrown in there. And I do want to say, while we're talking about the website, I did remember that Virgin Falls is on there. If you're going to reserve like backcountry camping, you reserve it through Fall Creek Falls for Virgin Falls. And Virgin Falls is one of the nicest hikes that I've ever been on. I've done it 3 times. I thought I might die every time coming back up out of there. It's not really that horrible of a hike, but it's more of most of the way in there, you're going downhill, and so you're coming back uphill most of the way out. Definitely, if you go in there, be sure you're prepared and you have a flashlight in case it gets dark, and you have some water or a filtration system to get you some water. But it's a beautiful area. Virgin Falls, once you get back in there, it's a beautiful waterfall to see, but there are sites along that whole trail that just make it such a beautiful hike. Now, the website did say that they can accommodate up to a 65-foot rig in some sites. I didn't personally see anything that I would want to bring a 65-foot rig into, but I can tell you that a lot of these sites are smaller, and it's more, not that they're smaller and hard to get into as far as giving you a warning with a larger rig, but it's more of there's trees everywhere. The site that we're in is site A37, which I had it marked as a good site before, and it is a pretty good site. It's not too horrible to get in. It took me a few tries. My friend here came out and asked me if I wanted some help, but said that he saw on one of my previous videos that I prefer to do it myself. I get a little nervous when people come help me, so he just offered help, and then he said that he would be in his camper if I needed anything, but he knew I liked to do it alone, and that's very admirable. It kept me from getting a little bit nervous. And we got in after 2 or 3 tries, and it was mainly the first try that I got in here. But there is one tree that's right on the edge of the site that I got kind of leery about, just because I didn't want to catch the back corner. I was pretty sure that I wasn't going to hit it, but I did get out and look at it 4 or 5 times to be sure. And then after I got back in there, I was a little too close on the driver's side to open my slide, I think, so I had to pull up and scoot over a little bit. And so with site 37, I'll say the biggest downfall of that is the tree at the very road, as well as because I got on the edge of the site, my stairs, I had to block them up a little bit, and there's some tree roots right there. And I've tripped on those tree roots about 4 times. Last night I had a big thing full of chicken I was cooking, and I was carrying it back in after I got done with it, and I about lost it all because I tripped over that stupid tree root. So just be careful. All right, so let's talk about things to do inside the park. There's a lot to do here in the park, especially if you're an outdoors kind of person. So number 1, obviously, is going to be going to see the falls, Fall Creek Falls. That's why everybody comes here, is to go see Fall Creek Falls. You can do a lot of hiking around there, but say you got a handicap and you're not big on hiking, your knees aren't any good, this is one of the few waterfalls that you can see all the beauty from if you just drive most of the way up to the viewing platform, and then you probably have to walk like 200, 300 feet, and you're right there and you can see it and take pictures and all that stuff. Now, if you're inclined, you can walk down to the bottom, do a hike down there. They say that's a real butt kicker on the way back out because it's pretty steep. As well as they do have a trail that goes around the bluffs at the top that I've seen people on before. And this is one of those areas that I've always kind of wanted to come and do a little backpacking, but I never have. As far as backpacking, I think they only allow you to backcountry camp in one area on the backpacking trail. So you gotta kind of be mindful of that. They do have a pool here. I know that, Tennessee state parks have closed their pool the last couple of years because of COVID. I think they've already closed them for the next year. I recently learned that a lot of places are closing the pools for good because it's, they're wanting to reallocate money into things that they can spend in wintertime because more people are coming in winter. Used to, whenever I'd come to a state park in the wintertime, it would be like my camper and one other camper all the way across the campground. For the last year, I'll say that there has been pretty full reservations here at the state parks, even in the wintertime. So people are listening to me and they're getting out there in the wintertime and doing it. Now, some other things that they got around here. Just in A-Loop here, they got a playground. The whole center area of A-Loop is like an open field, and there's a playground there. There's a pavilion here. There's like a central fire pit there next to the playground, which would be real nice when it wasn't too cold. We'll have a fire in, sit there and watch the fire and watch your kids play on the playground. There's also a little volleyball court over here. Now, if you go over by the offices, they got a basketball court. They got some tennis courts, multiple playgrounds around. I think there's another huge playground over there. There is another area here right before you come into the campground that's called George Hole. It's kind of a strange name. I tried to see if I could figure out where that come from. I couldn't find anything, but George Hole is a nice little swim area that you can go to. We went swimming there last time we were here, but we didn't go this time, obviously, because it's February and it'd be a little bit cold. There's also a beautiful rock formation right there above the swimming hole and a little bit of waterfall down at the end. And for all you golfers out there, they have a golf course here. I don't golf, so I don't really know, but they say that the golf course here is like creme de la creme. They say it's one of the best golf courses in the state. I don't know, I don't do it, but I know a travel nurse that used to stop by here and play golf on his way home every time that he would come to Tennessee to work. And so for me, that says, you know, apparently it's a pretty good place. I also want to say that the bathrooms were very clean. You know, they were kind of basic, but they are climate controlled. It looks like somebody's put some fresh paint on there, maybe even some new tiles on the floor here in the A-Loop, which did elevate it quite a bit. All right, guys, so let's talk about internet speeds. We're all about the internet speeds. I'm going to tell you that FirstNet through AT&T has blasted Verizon out of the water again here, which I'm still surprised every time that I do that. Download speeds on FirstNet, I got 56 download. On Verizon, I got 15 downloads, so it still wasn't bad, but it wasn't 56. And just for giggles, since there's a Wi-Fi antenna right next to this camper right here, I decided to hook up to that and do a test, which I usually don't even try anymore. But the Wi-Fi did come through at 4, which depending on how congested it is, it would probably be useful for most people. So, you know, you do have an option here. But like I say, I think most carriers here are going to be okay once you're in the campground. Once you get out of the campground, you kind of go down in some valleys and stuff right here, you're going to lose some service, and that's expected in these backcountry areas. All right, guys, so I am going to give you some recommendations here, even though I've done this before, but we're going to stick to mainly A-Loop here because that's where we're spending all of our time at. I did drive through the other loops, so I might just brush on them, but I'm going to give you most recommendations here for A-Loop, okay? I want to say that this is one of the state parks where the handicap sites are a step above the other sites. And so if you have a handicap, I would probably recommend you staying in a handicap spot because they're going to be more level, they're going to be nicer, they're going to have less trip hazards. But they are the nicest sites in my opinion. Now the best of these are going to be site 11, which is actually a pull-through site. It is a larger pull-through site for some of the pull-through sites that are here because most of them are teeny tiny and I wouldn't recommend them. But site 11, like I say, it's a handicap site. You have quite a bit of area in there. There's a big Class A in there right now that I have a picture of. But when you're pulling out, you're going to have to be careful for some tail swing in a tree right there. So just be careful with that and you should be fine. Sites 6 and 7 are real nice sites. They're right next to the bathhouse. And all 3 of those sites are included in that sewer hookup as well. So you don't have to worry about filling your tanks up there. Now I'm going to say the best site in A-Loop that's not handicap is going to be site 3. And it really might take some of them handicap sites for their money. So I'm going to say that site 3 is a pull-through site as well. Now it kind of goes through the edge of the loop. And so when you come in, it's going to be at the very beginning of the loop and it's going to have the sign there. However, it's designed, you can tell, so when you pull all the way through the loop and you get to the end of the loop to pull in, That's going to put all your connections on the right side of your trailer, and it's also going to give you more clearance to turn in there. But site 3 is going to have a very large yard area there, front yard space, and nobody like right up in your face. Then I think I'd pick site 39, which is actually where my friend here is. You know, it's not got a whole bunch of trees right around it. It's not too horrible to back into, and you still have a decent amount of front yard space here. So I think that it's a pretty decent spot. 39 and 37, which is where I am, which I told you about the tree there when I backed in. Both of them are a little unlevel, and they're both like nose high. So when we put our landing gear down, we had to raise them up a little bit on the front in order to have extra space to move the trailer down further than what it was when we unhooked it from the truck. I'd also recommend site 30. It was also nose high. The travel trailer that was sitting there when I walked by, their tongue was almost all the way down to the ground, but otherwise it appeared to be a pretty nice site. Then I'd also recommend site 18. 18 was just kind of unlevel two different ways. It was like, I can't remember if it was nose high or down, but it was also unlevel side to side. So that would be a pain, but it looked like it would be pretty easy to back into with no trees in the way. So I would still probably go there if I had a choice. And then I'd recommend site 44. All right, so let's do a quick rundown of the B loop. So on B loop, I had it marked as a bunch of trees before and smaller sites, but my friend said that they usually prefer B, so I gave it another try. I drove in there, and I will say that there is a lot of work going on in there, and a lot of it was blocked off because they had a bunch of trees fall down. Now they were clearing a lot of that out, so I think that that's going to actually make it a lot more usable space for most of it, and I think that it's probably going to have some good things to come over there. I drove through the rest of the loop, and there are some sites there that will accommodate decent sized trailers, but I would use a lot of caution when going over there around all those smaller side loops, because a lot of those can be a little bit tight. C loop was closed for winter, so we didn't get to go in there. I will say that most state parks only have like one loop open in the winter time, and this one had most of the loops open. But I will say that I remember from when I went in there before, all those were really close together and they were more like tent sites. Then we drove through D loop. On D loop, it was a lot of smaller sites, but I will say that there was site 199, which was a handicap site. Now you had to go around the loop at the end, which I think most rigs would handle okay. Maybe you'd have some issues if you were like 40 foot long, but most rigs would go around there okay, and then it's going to be a pull through, and it had a lot of space. And I really liked site 199. And then we went down E loop. Now E loop was connected to A loop here. It is, a lot of the other loops are gravel, where A has got blacktop. But I'll say that over in E, there were a lot of those little side loops that were real tiny. A lot of the sites were real tiny. I think it would be okay if you had like a pop-up or a teardrop or something like that. But I do want to say that there are some pretty big level issues over there on some of the sites that I saw, so be careful with that. There's also a restaurant here in the state park that a lot of people rave about. I think we might go check it out here in a little bit. If we do, I'll post a couple of pictures of our food here or something. But I don't usually go around the restaurants and stuff. I usually do most of the cooking here in the camper, but because we have heard so many good things about it, I think we may go try that out. So just look forward to some pictures here. If I decide to do that, we'll kind of tell you in the text how it was. But all in all, we really do like Fall Creek Falls State Park. It is one of those bigger campgrounds, and with that usually comes smaller spaces. And there are a lot of trees here. The only place that I think I've ever been with more trees around the campsites is Grand Traverse State Park, which is in Traverse City, Michigan. And that was like a maze of trees driving through there and made me pretty nervous. But you know, all in all, they do have it cleared out pretty well for your rigs to get around the loops. The only time that I was really nervous driving around A loop is there's one spot where you go down a bridge, and at the very beginning of that bridge, there's a tree that kind of hangs over at the top a little bit, and it made me a little bit nervous. Well, my camper's only 12 foot high. Well, after I put some lift blocks on there, it's about 12.3 at the moment. And so I have a lot more space than a lot of large fifth wheels do, and so I don't generally get too worked up about the height, but it's still something that you have to worry about and you have to think about. So we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for joining in.
Do not forget to hit that subscribe button.